Hello, my name is Clint Wesselman. I just wanted to reach out today to let you know that I genuinely love helping people and I love technology. So I wanted to send out something of value to you and have a little bit of training on social engineering. I thought this would be important since so many of us are working from home, and in a virtual world, it can be difficult to know who to trust. And the more awareness we have around the dangers of social engineering, the better. So I thought the best way to do this would be to invite in a former cyber investigator of the FBI, James Morrison. He now works for HPE, a colleague of mine, and my dad, and let them talk about some of the dangers of social engineering and get those questions answered. So James, meet my dad, Bob Wesselman.
Hi, James.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So James, can you just tell us what social engineering is?
Yeah, so social engineering is simply an attempt by, usually a criminal to manipulate information that they might have on you as a person and attempt to, use that information to get you to respond to requests for whether it be credit card, financial information, or personal information, and then use that against you in a criminal way.
Dad, have you ever heard of social engineering before?
Not really by that. The definition I kind of recognize, where people try to manipulate your identity, but I haven't actually heard it called that. But I guess we're all exposed to it.
You've probably heard more of the terms of phishing, baiting, things like that.
Yeah.
So under social engineering, we have a bunch of terms, and phishing is the most common way that it happens. They'll also call it smishing, which is text messaging, SMS phishing, and when I tell people about phishing, they're like, no, it's not that kind where you're out there looking for a fish, but to a bad guy, you're the fish. And they're throwing out an email, throwing out something that's hopefully provocative to, usually an offer of money or an offer of assistance. It's like the Nigerian prince scam. I tell people all the time, so you're figuring that this treasurer in this really large country in the world has contacted you in poor Port Arthur, Texas, and asked you for $1,000. I mean,
Yeah.
But if it seems too good to be true, especially get rich schemes, they probably are.
One thing our company's done is they'll send out those fake emails trying to catch us.
Yep.
And a lot of times they're teaching us to look for simple things like something misspelled, or possibly a dot, instead of .com, it's .net or whatever. They might have some different. So they've kind of taught us a little bit about what to look for. And
Yep.
if we don't catch those, then we got to go through a training. So I've been exposed. I never have had to do that, thank goodness. I've normally caught them. But if they say external on them, that's our first warning. They're not coming through the company.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. So this is one of the places that technology can actually be helpful. For example, flagging external emails as external. That's a great tip. But in addition, so there's a business email compromise scheme where they're able to get somebody inside your network to click and then take over their email account. So even emails from internal to the company, we have to be somewhat suspect, especially if it seems unusual. Is if all of a sudden they're saying, hey, I need you to, send money to a place, validate it, text them, call them. I had one particular company that they got a request from the finance manager, got a request from the, CEO saying, hey, pay this invoice. And they paid the invoice. And then in a conversation the next day, the CEO said, I never asked you to pay an invoice. So it's a very easy way if they can get access to anybody's email inside the network, or in some cases they'll pull the CEO's information but then register a fake address. So if it's coming from outside, like you're saying, flagging it as external is a really good idea.
Somebody on Shark Tank got hit for, I think it was $400,000 or whatever, and her administrator, she thought it was her administrator. Asking for approval of a transaction, and it wasn't.
Yep.
So it's not just an email asking for money; it's an email period that you open or you download.
Correct. Right. So links and attachments are the big threats. So when there's a link, you move your cursor over that link, take a look at it, examine it, look for any differences. Even the difference of a single dot changes the email address. So a lot of people don't know that if I have Amazon.com or I have Amazon.co.om, that's a totally different address. And so it's completely, we have to make sure we're going to the right place. And if there's ever any question, we were talking about as well, you'll get notifications saying, oh, there's something wrong with your account. You go to the known good address, you go through your browser and you go to that known address and check, and you'll be amazed how many times you'll find that, there's not really a request.
In text message, I do see strange ones on that at times.
Yep.
I don't recognize it, and just responding to that text, does that give them any access to anything? Or
the only thing it does, if you respond to a text, it's like responding to an email. You've now validated that somebody owns that phone number or somebody owns that email address. So you'll go on a list of known good numbers, and we have seen there has been some indications that the amount of calls you'll get that are bogus and scam related will go up following those kind of things. So responding to it is probably not, if you don't know who it is, especially if there's a link involved in it, they've put a link in the middle of it. That's usually a pretty good sign that it's probably fraudulent. I mean, if you get a wrong email text from somebody who's just looking for someone,
yeah,
they're not sending you a link. They're saying, hey, I'm looking for John or Joan or whatever. Then responding to them and saying, hey, that person doesn't have this phone number anymore is not as,
So if it said reply with stop, even that would be a response, and they could use it.
Yeah, I mean, if I remembered signing, and usually what I say, even for emails, like if you're, you get a email and it says, at the bottom, unsubscribe. If I remembered subscribing to it, like let's say I bought a T-shirt from a particular site, then that's okay. You can remember the initiation of that relationship. But if you just get a text message and you really have no idea who it is, I'm very cautious about even replying with the stop.
So since we are all working virtually, what's the best way that we can verify if someone's calling us that it's them? Maybe we don't know them that well, but they're saying they're from our company or from another company. How can we protect ourselves from that and know that we're actually talking to a trustworthy person?
So I typically I always say, everybody pull out a piece of paper, write down the information they're providing you, and say, hey, let me call you back. What's amazing by most of these scam calls is probably 95% of them, if you try to get them off the phone, they want to keep you on that phone. They want to try to create this false sense of urgency, and they want to keep you there because they know that if you hang up, you're probably going to validate the story and then not call back. So if you're on your phone and you have the opportunity, maybe even sending a text message. You can actually make a phone call and send a text message at the same time. And so if you have, like, let's say it's somebody calling from HR and the HR person, send them a text message, say, hey, do you have a X working for you in that group? If it's, we're seeing a lot of scam calls where it's like your kid's in the hospital, text your kid. I had one lady that she called me and she said, she got a phone call saying that her kid was in the hospital and she was really getting freaked out. She went around the corner and his keys were still hanging on the keychain. It was just in the emotional, kind of upset. She hadn't really validated that they were, even there. So just slow it down. Don't react from an emotional standpoint. Validate the story through external means.
I think it's interesting that a lot of the largest hacks came from started with social engineering. That was the beginning, and then that led to a much larger breach.
Statistically, it's 90% of attacks will start with a phishing or a attempt to socially engineer people. And it's interesting is that there's some indications that the millennial generation, because they share a lot of information, they may be a little bit more susceptible to that.
Cool. Yeah. Dad, do you have any other questions for James?
No, it's good, helpful information. Yeah, little things you don't think about sometimes.
Yeah, it's just think before you click, right? I mean, when you're seeing something and just slow down, think about it. Do I need to click on it? I mean, I'll even get up, kind of walk away if it's something, but then research. If it's a website, somebody you've never seen, you look at the email address. Maybe it's a new client being offered. You can look at their email address and it has the domain of their website, in their email address. Go look at it. Is it a legitimate website? Does it actually come back to something? We all have to get kind of a little bit more cautious about online activity.
That's very helpful.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Stay safe, everybody.